Support provided by Natchitoches Regional Medical Center, Northwestern State University, and Louisiana Tech.
Bit of a quirky schedule for Louisiana Tech. One game between the beginning of the month and the 21st, and that game was Thursday night when they lost at Kennesaw State, and it was not even close in that ball game. Next up for Louisiana Tech will be a Tuesday night game at home against Western Kentucky. But during their full bye week, I had a chance to talk to Bulldog head coach Sonny Cumbie about a variety of topics with his Bulldogs team, including his outstanding defense, which has had a great year until that disappointing night at Kennesaw State. Last year, you finished 11th in the country in defense. So far this season, to your point, number one in turnovers in the country, number one in defensive touchdowns scored. When I was on campus visiting with you up there in August, there was a lot of buzz about Tony Franklin and what he was bringing to the offensive side. Maybe we should be talking about Luke Olson and what he's done on the defensive side, bringing him in from Jacksonville State. Can you talk about just the system he's brought in and how your experienced players have really taken to the system and shown it on the field?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's twofold. You know, you have a coordinator in Luke Olson that has really a new defensive staff with Paul Randolph at defensive line, Carlton Buckles at corner, you know, Coach Sam Carter at safeties, Josh Creech, and Courtney Arnett coaching our linebackers. And I think that's where, you know, we have a tremendous defensive staff. And our players, I tell our assistant coaches that, you know, the goal of you leading your room is that your players should have an advantage because you're their coach, and I think we truly do have an advantage because of those guys that I mentioned as far as position coaches. And then the other thing about it is we have some really good players, and I think that our football IQ by our players on defense is really as high as it's ever. Again, high as I've ever been around in terms of kids understanding football, understanding, you know, alignment splits, learning concepts. And being able to pick up what an offense is trying to do during the course of the week. Our defensive coaches do a great job of teaching, and our players do a great job of learning. And then when you have guys that are talented, you know, then I think that's a great mix. And Coach Olson, you know, from a structure of a defense standpoint, it starts out as the same structure as what we had last year, but it's a lot more aggressive from the standpoint of the things that we do in terms of coverage and blitzes. And I think that's where you've seen the increase in takeaways is we've been able to speed quarterbacks up. And when you speed quarterbacks up and you put that on film, you know, the quarterback the next week is watching that and he's seeing, you know, just how physical our defense is. He's seeing how many hits we get on the quarterback. You know, he sees how many times we get balls batted in the air. You know, he sees how many times we get the quarterback out of the pocket because of our pressure. You know, and I think that gets in guys' heads at quarterback. And so we've been able to do that defensively with an aggressive style, with great players and a great coaching staff. And so, you know, we have a lot of football games left to play. And we've got to continue to elevate and continue to create takeaways, be great on third down. You know, the red zone defense has been really good. And so we've got to just continue to do that. And I know that we're going to be able to do that on offense as well in terms of finding our rhythm, because offense, for me, there's such a rhythm to it. And I think a rhythm and getting the pieces in the right place. And we're in the midst of doing that on offense.
I want to ask you about some more offense in just a moment, Coach, but you mentioned the names. You mentioned a lot of football left to be played. One of the names you mentioned, Colby Fields, unfortunately, you won't be with him after suffering a non-contact injury and losing him for the season. Coach, in your press conferences, you have said, for those who know his story and how that's why it hurts so much, for those around the state who might not know his story, can you give us sort of a synopsis and the quick review of why losing him has been so tough because of what his story means?
Well, I think he's from Rummel High School in New Orleans. Goes to South Carolina, long ways away from home, ends up transferring back to LSU. He gets to LSU, and I think that was right in the midst of the coaching transition. I think when Matt House took over as defensive coordinator, Colby got there before that. And so I don't know if it was a great fit or, you know, in terms of a linebacker and what they were looking for. He played a year there and then was really just, I think, you know, it's kind of you know, he lost a little bit and you know, went to the portal. And, you know, as soon as, you know, we were alerted to that he was there in the portal, man, it was a no-brainer for us to try to get him here to North Louisiana and to Louisiana Tech. And so, you know, you go and you visit at his home, you know, during the recruiting period. And you know, I think the thing that, you know, that you get into coaching, and I think people that get into education, which I consider coaching, you get into education because you're teaching people, like you want to help people. Like you want to allow them to grow. You want to help them be a better version of themselves. And that help comes in a lot of different forms and a lot of different ways. But that's where, like, when you find a kid, where Cumbie was really down. I think he was really discouraged, and was really looking for a new start and a fresh start. And we were able to provide that for him. And he was able to open up his heart to allow us to earn his trust. And, he gets here and he starts working. And since he's been here for us, he's been the hardest worker. I told our staff, numerous times, and there's other guys on their team that are like this, but man, we're really lucky that our best player on our team, Cumbie Fields, works like he does, shows up like he does, prepares like he does, has the passion for the game like he does, because everybody else follows suit, and we're very fortunate. We can't take that for granted. As he comes here, does all that, and then he gets denied a waiver in terms of being eligible to play 2 years ago. And this is right during fall camp. You're about to start the season. Everything that he's looking forward to in terms of playing now gets taken away from him. He has this red shirt. He sits out. He goes to the scout team and does absolutely whatever the team needed him to do. He played scout team running back. He played scout team tight end. He played scout team receiver. Whatever the defense needed him to do that week to give them the best look, he did that. He traveled with us to every game, and Victor, we played some really bad defense that year, and then he had to sit on the sideline and watch it. And knowing that he could help us be a better defense, that made it even worse, I'm sure, for him. And then for him to get the opportunity last year and to play the way he did and to continue to get better and better and better. And then he has an injury at the end of the season last year, and he can't play in their bowl game. And, he chooses to stay here. He chooses to want to try to win a championship here. He chooses to want to make this place, take it back to where we're winning football consistently here. And just does it with such tenacity for the game. And then when you look at him as from a football player standpoint, his instincts are off the chart. His football IQ is off the chart. He is a playmaker in every sense of the way. And that's where, like, his physical presence, we're going to miss his physical presence undoubtedly on our team and on the field. But I think that he has done such a tremendous job with our linebackers and our defense of building the standard. And now our kids know what that looks like, and so now they can go out and now other guys are going to elevate, and I think that you'll see that with our defense. And I think that once he gets back around our players, I always talk to our guys too, is that everybody gives off energy and gives off life. And, you can choose to give life to guys, or you can choose to be, a bump on the log and drain energy of people. And I think that's where, yesterday Cumbie was at our team meetings and our position meetings, and you could just see how much energy it gave him, and then vice versa. And so now for us, we're a true team, and the standpoint of now we've got to step in and pick him up. And the best way we can do that is to play great football, to continue to pursue a conference championship. And then whenever we can get him back around the practices and around the facility, we're going to do that, just the same as we would, any other guys. But he means a lot to us. He's done a great job here and just meant so much to our team.
I know everybody looks forward to seeing that young man back on the field with you, Coach. I'd like to go back, if you don't mind, just a second. I want to go back to your one loss at LSU. And I don't want to talk about the loss, but, Coach, since that game, your defense has only given up 15 points a game, but your offense has accelerated. You're now up to 36 points a game from there. You grow from wins. Coach will say you learn from losses. What do you think your team lost, or learned, rather, from that loss in Baton Rouge that has now kick-started what you've done the last 3 weeks?
I think that, our guys are fighters, and they don't back down. They don't flinch. And they have a lot of confidence in themselves. And I think that that was evident in that game in terms of how they played. And I think that they just have grown from that. It was a huge challenge across the board in every area. I think that's the biggest thing that our kids took away from that game is their belief in themselves. They validated that in terms of being able to compete, with some of the best players in the country and go out and do that. And so I think that's what we took away from it is, we want to try to win every game, and we weren't able to do that. And then, we've been able to learn a lot in terms of our wins as well. I think our offense, again, like I said, has played some really elite offensive football, throughout the course of this year. We just got to do it more consistently, and then defensively continue to get, to get the takeaways. But special teams is also an area, where I think our team can continue to grow. And that's where, like, the maturity of our football team, really has to kick in now. And because you have had, just a little bit of success, and again, there's so many football games left to be played, but they have to understand the process every week that it takes to be successful, or to allow yourself the chance to be successful in terms of our preparation.
I know one of the concerns you had, Coach, was coming out of halftime, the consistency in the second half. Do you feel like that's been addressed and they're a little more comfortable now with what you're trying to do to finish off games in the third and fourth quarter?
No, we got a long ways to go there, Victor. I've been really, we have not finished games in the fourth quarter. You talked about, Southern Miss scored a touchdown right at the end where we didn't finish a play in man coverage. The ball was tipped in the air, similar to the play we had against Nussmeier, where the ball gets tipped and the free safety, the roof player is finishing the play and ends up gets the interception. Similar player against Southern Miss, and we give up a touchdown on the last drive. And then again against UTEP, we give up a touchdown on defense there late in the fourth quarter, which they should not have had. And so from a defense that's really playing stingy, we let the foot off the gas there. In the fourth quarter, we've had some really foolish penalties in the fourth quarter on special teams on our punt and punt defense, where we, from a mental standpoint, we botched a snap last week after a sudden change in the fourth quarter on an extra point, which should never happen. Those are layups; they should be automatic. And then we've offensively, for the times where we've searched for consistency, we have done a nice job at the end of games. In terms of controlling the football, and getting first downs and keeping our defense off the field when you have a game won. But our mentality to just finish people and to finish games with the same fervor as which we start has got to be better as we go down the stretch here in conference.
It certainly has been our pleasure covering the Bulldogs here on Game Notes. I really appreciate your time with this oddity in the schedule. One game between now and October 21st, between two byes and midweek games. But you're very kind to join us. And, Coach, I appreciate your time. We wish you the best of luck, and we look forward to covering you the rest of the season.
Hey, Victor, well, I appreciate it. I appreciate what you guys are doing in terms of coverage and getting the story out about our football team and about our players. We've got a lot of great young men. I think we've got a really good football team. We've got to continue to prove it. But I really appreciate you taking the time out and your commitment to cover us.
I appreciate it, Coach. It is our pleasure. Sonny Cumbie, the head coach of the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. Coach, we'll see you again soon. Thanks so much for the time.
Hey, thanks a lot, Victor.